Presenting the first panel of the day, put your hands together for the Diablo 3 lore panel.
What's up, everybody? I guess if it hasn't been announced, welcome to day 2. It's very good to see y'all up and alive this morning. Hi. So guys, it's kind of interesting, 15 years of Diablo, and at least something like 7 years of Blizzcon. We've actually never had just a straight lore panel before, so this should be really cool. We've got some absolute badasses on this stage today. Guys, this is Leonard Boyarski. He is our senior world designer on D3. Kevin Martins is our lead content designer, and we've been tag teaming now what seems for 100 years on Diablo 3. We're gonna riff a little bit on some new ideas, talk a little bit about Book of Cain and some of the history we've been trying to put together, and then we'll open it up for Q&A around the midpoint. I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions. Hell, we do too. So as we get started here, I wanted to tell you guys, many of you know we've been doing this Book of Cain thing. Do we talk about it a little later in this presentation? It's up to me. Talk about it right now. So we put together this thing called Book of Cain because, you know, the past number of years as we've been developing the story for Diablo 3, it demanded that we kind of relook at the world and relook at, you know, kind of the way history flowed. The Diablo series was developed between 2 different companies, probably something like 8 different fiction writers, you know, across manuals, you know, in the game scripts. And to be totally honest with you, it was a bit of a mess. And as we started really getting deep into D3, where like new ideas were coming out and kind of new looks at the world were taking shape that were really, really cool. And so we started to really look at the history and tighten up and trim and kind of relook at how these ideas stack. So, you know, so you get like the most maximum tight and smartly built, you know, continuity, you know, game continuity. So, and that really begat the Book of Cain. You know, as we kind of got all these ideas together, you know, this is pretty badass. Maybe we can, you know, put this in a cover and give it to people. So I just want to say up front, we get this on the Warcraft and Starcraft fronts all the time, is, you know, when you start tweaking things and, you know, purposefully retconning things, you know, it can get a little emotional. You know, people like to know what they know and like to count on, you know, the lore that they've been following for years. So I just wanted to say up front, especially in the Q&A part, I'm sure you guys are going to have a lot of questions for things. I know like previews for Book of Cain went up last night, and some things look a little different than they've looked for years. But all by design. No real major world changes or anything like that, by the way. This all sounds very gnarly, but just want to say up front, like we've been going back through history and trying to tighten it up and make it as smart as we can make it. So wanted to say that up front. As we get going here, I want to talk a little bit about the eternal conflict. As I roll right into that, we want to kind of debut kind of a kit of ideas that we've been building into Diablo for a while, but we haven't really evidenced in the game series so far. But I thought it'd be fun for you guys to see a little bit of the angels in the Diablo universe, right? We don't talk about them a whole lot. The only character you guys have seen consistently is Tyrael. So to kind of set up a little discussion about them, the idea is the Diablo universe is predicated on an eternal conflict. We have the high heavens and the burning hells. And one of these modified ideas that we've come up with, that we've been running with for the past couple years in development, is that what are heaven and hell actually fighting about? What are they doing, right? We kind of had this idea that, I don't know how to explain Anu and the dragon, right? Like, there's a mythic cycle we came up with of like the creation of the universe, right? That the ultimate manifestations of good and evil fought at the beginning of time and pretty much wiped each other out in kind of like a Big Bang kind of explosion, right? So part of the good guy was this kind of massive crystal, right? And we call it the Eye of Anu, right? It is the world stone, right? You know, kind of spinning out in the heart of the universe itself. And legend holds, right, that with the world stone, legend holds, like I'm making it up as I go, that the world stone can be used, it's called the world stone, to build worlds without end. It's essentially, you know, the heart of, you know, this supreme deity, right? That, you know, is a force of creation. So with this thing, it's theorized that you can build worlds without end. And ultimately, heaven, you know, the high heavens and the burning hells pretty much are also evidences of these first two great, you know, powers of the universe. So as the high heavens and the burning hells, as the angels and demons kind of become aware of each other, they start fighting over this world stone, because whoever controls it, right, can pretty much shape reality to their whim. So the idea that we built is in the center, you know, of the universe, where this world stone is, the forces of heaven and hell have been fighting there. We call that place Pandemonium. You guys will be familiar with the Pandemonium Fortress, you know, from different. I think we had a look at it in.
Yeah, it was in Diablo 2.
Diablo 2.
And at that point, the angels controlled it, and it was sort of their forward operating base
Right.
at the gates of hell. So.
Right. And the idea is that over the aeons, right, since the dawn of time, heaven and hell have been fighting. Different sides have held it for different lengths of time. You know, for this 10,000-year span, hell's owned it. For this next, you know, 30,000-year span, heaven owned it. So its architecture is kind of shaped relative to both of those cultures, kind of like a Jerusalem kind of thing, right? Like different occupying forces have controlled this thing over time.
I should say it's also way bigger than what you guys have seen in the game. There's a lot more to it that we've never shown or talked about.
And the idea is that the Pandemonium Fortress is kind of built around the World Stone, right? And kind of built to contain it, and it certainly provides us with a nice little battleground for you know, these forces to clash over. As you move forward in time, the character of Inarius, right, started to chafe at this giant battle. He didn't want to play ball anymore. He thought that this unending eternal conflict was just ridiculous. He's like, I'm out, I'm done. He just kind of has a total break. And long story short, he conscripts like-minded angels and even stranger like-minded demons, like the demoness Lilith. And they pull off, you know, the Ocean's 11 maneuver. They actually wind up stealing the World Stone from the heart of Pandemonium. Technically, it's, how to explain, it's still right there, right? The World Stone exists at the heart of creation, but somehow they like dimensionally veiled it, right? They kind of blinked it out into a dimensional pocket that heaven and hell could not see. You can imagine what that would do to the eternal conflict. Suddenly, the thing we're fighting over, the power of creation itself, zoop, is gone. So that complicated things for heaven and hell. What do we fight over now? Where the World Stone went is in the dimension of sanctuary. With this power of creation, Inarius and his goofy friends forged for themselves a paradise, you know, a garden sanctuary, right, where they could do their hippie stuff and, you know, run around naked, have fun, you know, chase bunnies. And there, these renegade angels and demons began to get it on. They had babies. They had scary, mighty, supernatural babies called the Nephilim. Long story shorter, over time, these Nephilim, long story, their bloodlines begin to diminish, their powers begin to diminish because they're very, very scary, mighty monsters, something that was never planned for in creation. Hybrids of both angelic and demonic power. What am I doing? This is weird. Grabbing air. So, sorry. Hold me. The hell were we talking about? So the Nephilim ultimately diminish and become us, become men, and the idea, and women, and the idea is that locked within mortal genetic code, right, is the power of gods, right, far beyond angels and demons, right? The thing that scares the living hell out of heaven and hell is the fact that we are the potential to be far mightier than they. Some of these ideas you guys might have seen in the Sin War trilogy that we put out a number of years ago with Richard Knack. We were kind of riffing in this space and trying to construct a trilogy that would sing to some of this stuff. But if you guys wind up checking out the Book of Cain, we definitely get into all this stuff and show the very linear chain of events that really produced Sanctuary. So having said all that, let's get into this. So angels, we never talk about them, right? You guys might have heard a few names before, like Tyrael, Isual, Inarius, this angel that went nuts and stole the World Stone and made a world for us to live in. As we were developing Diablo 3, we thought it'd be cool to kind of chase down these angels, right? Just kind of, hey, you know, who are these guys? What's going on? We always deal with the Lords of Hell. We know exactly who these 7 Yahoos are. Why not just kind of riff and you know, hook ideas for the other side of the argument? So what we jammed up long ago was the Angelus Council, right? The council of 5 archangels that pretty much rule and administrate over the high heavens, right? They are the direct opposite counterpart to the lords of hell. Much like the lords of hell, who each have their own sphere of influence, like, you know, the Lord of Terror, hate and destruction. The Angelus Council also have very specific spheres of influence that pretty much define who they are and what their function is in the high heavens. As we're rolling through, Doctor, thank you. You guys have seen Tyrael before. Tyrael is the Archangel of Justice. And what's kind of cool about the aeons of history of Diablo before the creation of Sanctuary, I think Tyrael is a fairly anal retentive dude, right? He's about order, he's about justice, he's about the system of how things work, very unbending, very rigid kind of guy. And what's cool about the dawn of mankind, the creation of Sanctuary, one day, Tyrael finds out that, that this world exists and there's people running around like, holy cow. The result of the Sin War, whereby a hero, a Nephilim hero named Uldyssian kind of achieves ultimate power. He's on the verge of achieving his just maximum Nephilim, power, which scares the living, I gotta stop doing the pun, which scares heaven and hell. Uldyssian gives of himself. He pretty much sacrifices himself. Instead of attaining godhood, he chooses his humanity at the end and pretty much dies in an attempt to kind of reset things in the world. Affected by Uldyssian's sacrifice, Tyrael, this rigid archangel of justice, goes, wow, right? These mortals, while they scare everybody else, have such capacity, Peter Brady had such capacity for selflessness and honor and heroism that Tyrael really begins to change. It really begins to kind of drop the whole, systemic thinking and kind of legalistic worldview. And really, that's why he kind of becomes the maverick of heaven. It's interesting that the Archangel of Justice pretty much becomes the outlaw of the Angelus Council. And we see through history, time and time again, he has intervened on behalf of mankind because he believes that we have some great innate worth, and which is essentially why he is our favorite angel, right? Tyrael is, he's the man. You guys dig on that statue over there? How crazy is that? So badass. The next archangel is Ariel, the archangel of hope. Ariel is, as you'd expect, the most upbeat of the Angelus Council. She's serious as a heart attack, infinitely wise, infinitely hopeful. She really works as, if this group was a player group, she's the cleric, right? With her power and with her kind of cord of hope, it's kind of this item that she wears that can either bestow blessings or kind of be used as this kind of cool, energy ribbon. Ariel really works as the heart of the group. She holds them all together. You might assume that these archangels in this family is very dysfunctional. They don't always get along really well. Even though they are wonderful, angelic people, they typically have their heads up their asses, and Ariel really tends to be the grounding force amongst them. The next archangel we want to talk about is Malthael. He's an interesting character, and we're really still kind of chasing down his storyline. But the idea with Malthael is that he's the archangel of wisdom, and from time immemorial, he's really served as the conciliary to the Angelus Council, the kind of the voice of reason, and the guy that has when he speaks up with his soft little voice, like everybody listens, right? He's usually right, which I'm sure pisses everybody else off. One of the interesting things in the history we've devised is at the point that Inarius and his buddies hijacked the World Stone, the heart of creation, to some degree, Malthael flipped out, right? This guy that's constantly thinking about the universe and the truth of reality, suddenly the heart of reality blinks out, right? Again, it's sanctuaries being created. These guys don't know where it went. And it kind of fries his brain a little bit. So kind of over time, Malthael kind of begins to darken a little bit. We're still kind of working out his story, but interesting transition. The Angel of Wisdom has become something more like a very grim character, right? Thus the scythes and stuff. Malthael's definitely got a big part to play in the ongoing story of the Diablo universe.